In this episode, we're going to look at how to connect our Node.js API to Mongo. So we're going to go through the basic MongoDB setup with the Mongoose library. We're also going to look at how to use Postman to actually submit requests to our database, generate new records, update existing records, and delete them. If this sounds like what you need to know, you're in the right place. And if this video helps you out, please give it a thumbs up, ask any questions down in the comments, and consider subscribing to the channel. All right, let's jump in. What's up everyone, Steven here from TechMaker Studio. In this episode, we're going to wrap up our Node.js API that we've been working on. I did a quick little video yesterday on Mongoose and using Mongoose to talk to Mongo. And if you're wanting to learn more about how Mongoose works, definitely check that video out. But here, what we're going to do is just use what we did. So it'll be kind of the same thing, but I'm going to skip over some of the more obvious details. So I'm going to go ahead and npm install Mongoose into my project here. That's going to be the first thing that we need to do. Once that installs, which shouldn't take very long, we'll fire back up our server here. And I'm going to go ahead and say, first of all, let me fix this really quick just to have this uniform. And then we'll say const mongoose equals require mongoose. Now, yesterday we did something a little bit different than we're going to do today, but I was reading through the actual Mozilla documentation, and they suggest bringing in Mongo like this. So essentially just require mongoose, then we're going to have a URL for our database, which we're going to use the URL from yesterday's video. We're going to have mongoose connect and then pass in these arguments and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and set this up. So the first thing we're going to do is just set up this URL. So we say const mongodb and we'll say HTTP, actually just kidding, it's mongodb :/ and in our case we're going to say localhost, and I believe it is 27017. And then we had used something where we, in our little episode yesterday, where we said dog API. So we'll say that's Mongo, and then we'll have mongoose connect, which we'll just copy from here so we don't have to type all this out. And let me try to word wrap this. There we go. I actually don't really need that open. And maybe we can zoom a pinch. There we go. Hopefully that makes it a little easier to read. So we got our mongoose connected. We're going to say const db equals mongoose.connection. And then I'm just going to copy this actually. Okay, cool. So let's save that and let's try to connect. So what we're going to do first, as we walked through yesterday, is set up a schema. So we'll say const dog schema equals new mongoose.schema. And then in here, we specify the attributes with the data types. We have name, string, we have breed, which is a string, and then we have age, which is a number. Okay, and then the next thing we do is we initialize an actual like dog model. So we'll say const dog with a capital D equals mongoose.model, and that's going to take in the dog string first, just saying what the name of this thing is, and then the dog schema. Okay, so let's save that. And then down here we have this dogs array, which we'll just leave for now. But what we can do is inside of app.get/ we can say const dogs equals dog.find, no arguments, and that's just going to look up all. And then let's comment this out and let's restart our server and see what this does. Failed number is not defined. That needs to be a capital N. Let's try this again. Listening on port 4567. If we refresh here, converting circular structure property S something something something. Let's actually log out what we're getting here. Let's say console.log dogs, and let's go ahead and just like put a little flag here so it's obvious what's coming from us. Refresh this page again. Okay, so what you can see is that we're logging out a query here. It's a little bit early in the morning and I messed this up. If we scroll down in the documentation over here, you can see what we need to do. So we pass in our query parameters, which in our case we have none, and then we have a callback function. So let's just do that. So we're just going to pass in a callback function error, and then we're going to say dogs, and then let's just bump these things up in there. So if we restart our server and come back over here and refresh, you can see that we're actually getting the data that we created in our previous video. So that's great. So basically what we want to do is just go through each one of our things here and update it to return back the correct thing. So in our case here, what we want to do is say, and actually, you know what? Let me just go ahead and remove that because we don't need to set that. So what we can do is say dog.find by ID, and then we'll say request.params.id, and then we'll pass in a callback. So we can do the same thing here and then just send, whoa, that's not what I wanted. There we go. We'll just send back the dog. And again, let's restart our server over here. And I don't need to do this console logging anymore. That's fine. Okay, so now what is this? /dogs/ID. So we can copy this ID here and say dogs ID, and we get Sam. So now our two get methods are both working. So now we want to hook up our actual post, and we're obviously going to have to use Postman for this. So what we want to do first of all, we want to have we want to set up a new dog. So we're going to say const dog equals new dog, and then we're going to pass in the attributes. So remember, we have name, we have breed, and we have age. And so each one of these are going to be request.body. And then the name, or the parameter name or whatever. So attribute name. So we'll say request.body.breed, and then request.body.age. And then what we're going to do is say dog.save, and then the save is going to have a callback, and I believe it's the same thing as earlier. And then we'll just res.json dog, and let me check in the docs really quick if this is the callback structure. I don't have that memorized. Looks like we might be able to have this here. Let's just say we have the dog already initialized, so we'll say dog.save and then just send the dog as JSON. Now we're not doing any error handling here, which obviously if this is a real API, you're going to have to handle errors that happen. We don't have any validations, nothing like that. Okay, so what we want to do is restart our server again, and then we're just going to be really careful to make sure we post this with the correct items. So what we're going to do is pass a post method to dogs, and then we need the name, and let's say Sarah. We're gonna give it a, actually we're on params here. Let me go ahead and axe this. I'm on the wrong thing. We want to go to body, and we want this to be I need to like resize some stuff. There we go. Okay, so this is where we were yesterday. We had name Jackson, that's fine. We have breed, and then I don't know how to spell Chihuahua, so I'm just gonna spell something different. Let's say Corgi. My first idea, I don't even know how to spell it. Okay, and then the age we're gonna say is 4. Okay, and are we still console logging here? No, it doesn't look like it. Okay, so if we send this, we get back Jackson, Corgi, and the age is 4. And if we come to our root path, now we have 3 items. Cool, so now we're adding things to the database. So we're probably going to run over the 10-minute mark with this video, and I apologize, but I just want to make sure I explain a few things. If you look at this, you might be wondering why we have this callback syntax. And you know, here we're actually using this dog model and we don't have a callback. In this case, we're initializing something right here in place, so this isn't actually talking to the database. But anytime we do something like where we go out and talk to another system, aka the database, JavaScript is going to want us to do that asynchronously, where we call the method and then we give it a callback on what to do when it completes. So we won't get into that too deeply here, but just wanted to kind of point that out. The next thing we need to do is work out how to do an update. So I want to kind of use an interesting thing here. So we're going to have a filter to start. So we're going to have filter, and it's going to be ID underscore ID, and then request.params.id. Then we're going to have a update that we want to make to our item, and in this case I'm going to try to just do request.body. So whatever is in the body, we're going to consider our update. And then what we're going to do is use this method find one and update. So we're going to say dog.find. Actually, let's do find by ID and update. I just saw that there. And so that means we don't need this filter actually. That's a different method. So that one, we'll get into that later. But for now, we'll do find by ID and update. So we'll say request.params.id. And then we'll pass in our update, which in actual fact, we could just say request.body right here if this is going to work. So whatever's in the body, we're going to use to update. And then let's pass in the callback function. And let's just go with this for now. Let's go with this. This may not work exactly how I'm thinking, but let's come back to it. If you don't follow this channel, I don't have everything on earth memorized, obviously, and I like to kind of be a little bit more realistic with the workflow to how I actually work than just kind of showing you literally exactly everything to do. But anyway, so let's come to put. Let's go slash. We need an ID. Let's update this corgi. We're gonna pass the ID in there. Let's get rid of the name and the breed and just update the age to be 7. Okay, let's click send. And actually, let me make sure I restart my server here before we do that. And just to be sure, I'm going to change this to be 9. Click send. And you get this message back, updated dog. That doesn't necessarily mean success. Let's refresh up here, and you can see that the age is 9. Awesome. So that means our update is working. And the last thing we need to hook up is delete. So let's come over here and let's look at that method dog.findById and delete. And if we look at this, let's just do request.params.id and then a callback. And then let's just bump this JSON up in there. And then let's delete this console log. Let's run this and let's try this again. So we're basically going to take our exact same method or our URL down here, and we're just going to switch to a delete method. And if we click send, we're saying deleting dog, whatever, and I should say deleted probably, but let's refresh up here. And now you can see that that dog is gone from our database. Okay, so that's the basic setup. Really quick, let's talk through 2 or 3 things that need to be updated on this before this could be even close to like a real API. Because if you're just starting out, I don't want you to think like this is it. First of all, we don't have consistency with what we're giving back. So when we create a new record in the database, we're sending back the record. But when we do an update, we're sending back messages. So we would need to choose what we want to do and create a unified strategy so that typically you want things to respond in a similar manner to each other. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is we don't have any security. So anybody can talk to this API. Anybody could add items, delete items, update anybody else's items. And that's not good. So we would need to work out some kind of security. And that would be a good starting point to kind of improving this, and if you wanted to push it out somewhere and actually try to use it a bit. But until you had those things, it probably wouldn't be the best idea. In any case, that's it for this. Hopefully this was helpful. If this helped you out, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you next time.